Hi, my name's Andrew Payne, host of the podcast Men on Show, and I'm delighted to welcome Jonathan McDonald to the show today. Jonathan is like a fount of knowledge on so many different things. He's had such an extraordinary life with so much insight, so much varied insight. I don't even know where to start with your bio, really. So, all I would say, he's a powerhouse. He's founder of Social Me Too, Potency Unleashed, and we're going to certainly talk about those. I'm looking forward to getting into those, but an advocate for mental health, neurodiversity with his own lived experience of dyslexia. I found out today that, Jonathan, you were adopted.
Yes.
Your mixed race adopted into a white British family. I'm interested maybe if we open that up as well as a topic.
Sure.
So, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. And just to start with, tell me about yourself growing up as a boy. What are kind of the standout memories for you, good or bad? But what
Mm.
were the standout memories for you?
So we're going to talk about the adoption element. But what was certainly true is that, so we were talking about adoption, talking about this book, The Primal Wound. Never felt traumatized or wounded about being adopted, always knew I was adopted. However, I wet the bed until I was 5, and I remember wearing nappies to primary school. So it's interesting because this is reflection. Now I'm over the half century. This is reflection. You look back on these things. And my dad, who's now 88, said to me a couple of years ago, "Oh, yeah, we had to have a specialist OT because your legs didn't work." And it transpires that for the 9 months I was in the children's home, I didn't get picked up. So one of my ventures, the outsider perspective, is not just a set of words next to each other. I have always considered the majority of people in the world as other. I now find my tribe with ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, anyone on the neurodivergent spectrum, I can find a way to speak to them, but I've become depressed about my ability to change anyone else. So, with respect to childhood, I think that that disconnect where you would normally be on your mother's breast or being held or picked up or played with, I think that that disconnect allows me a level of independence that other people would struggle to muster. So that's a memory.
Interesting, interesting. So, some major possible downsides to that lack of connect with your biological parents, being in, you mentioned the children's home. Downside, obviously, your legs weren't working properly, emotional disconnect. But perhaps longer term, something good that's come from that is you have a level of independence that maybe others would struggle with. That's an interesting way of
Mm.
looking at it. What was it, being adopted? Are you consciously aware of that as a younger child, that your parents are not your birth parents, but other children live with their parents generally that are their birth parents? How aware of you? How aware of that are you?
I was always aware because I don't look like them, because they're white and I'm mixed race. So it was always explained to me from the earliest time that I could process language that I was adopted, and that I was chosen. And There's an interesting dynamic with my older brother, their natural son, and he rejected our mother very severely, and he's rejected me pretty severely. Like, so in 8 years since I stopped picking up for Christmas because we had a tussle for which I'm responsible. But since I've stopped picking him up for Christmas, in 8 years he's phoned me twice. So I, on reflection, because dad said, oh, yeah, the reason blah, blah, blah doesn't go on with mum is because of X, Y, Z thing she did. And I thought, okay, well, you could have that argument. Why is it the same for me? And now, with perspective, I understand that he rejected her because I stole her from him. And he was not given the information about why I was adopted. And there was a lot of prenatal and birth stress, high levels of cortisol flowing through the placenta. And this is a man who is perpetually in a state of anxiety and stress, and he doesn't know why. And there's no point telling him now. So my task, dad said to me, don't tell him. I said, fair enough. So my task is to protect his narrative.
Okay.
So that's a memory.
And how was it for you as a mixed race child at school? Did you find you were accepted? Did you find that there were racial issues? Were people picking on you, or did people pretty much accepting and it was fairly easygoing?
So I'm a child of the 70s. I remember seeing in the distance a National Front rally march through the town where I live. And my CV, not that I'm ever going to go for a job with anyone else again, but my CV, the first line is, as a mixed race child growing up in a white family, my experience of racism seems different from many. Maybe I'm lucky, or maybe there's an inherent difference. Now, this is another thing that only come to you on reflection. First of all, the bravery of my parents to adopt a black mixed race child in the 70s. I was one of only two people of color in my primary school. But you see, in order